environmental protection, and I work with a lot of recycling coordinators. But I was a recycling coordinator before taking this position. And I think that we really should be called waste reduction coordinators, because that's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to reduce waste. It is much more than recycling, and that's kind of what I want to get into tonight. So it's great that the town of Tewksbury has banned plastic bags. I live in the city of Lynn, and believe it or not, Lynn has now banned plastic bags, and that will be implemented in September. So hopefully with the surge of all these cities and towns banning plastic bags, that the state won't be too far behind in doing the same. And then straws, and then the rest. But the real problem is why all this plastic, right? I mean, we're just surrounded by plastic and other waste. And we're a real consumer society in a lot of ways. And so I want to talk first about waste reduction in Massachusetts, just to kind of give you a big picture of it and what it is. And then we can talk about reducing it. So this is a landfill, basically. And if you can't see all the words, I'll read them out. It's overconsumption. It's filled landfills. Actually, Massachusetts has very few landfills now. They've all been capped and filled. And so what we do have in Massachusetts is waste-to-energy plants, and I'll get into that in a minute. We have pollution from all of this waste. We have greenhouse gas emissions, and we have climate change. And so on the greenhouse gas emissions, we talk a lot, my colleagues and I and others in the waste arena, about the fact that, you know, when they do these models on greenhouse gas and what waste has to do with greenhouse gas emissions, they're usually only looking at the landfill. But what we really should be looking at is the whole life cycle of any product, right? And how much that's actually adding to the pollution of the planet. And we'd see much more interest in waste at that time then. So, I'm gonna see. All right, good. So Massachusetts has had solid waste master plans for years, and they do them every 10 years. And so the first one was issued in 1990, and the last one came out in 2010. They're working on the 2020 solid waste master plan right now. So how did we do last time? So the 2020 goals were to reduce solid waste disposal by 30%. So they wanted to get down to 4.5 million tons of disposal by 2020, down from 6.5. But in 2017, we were only at 5.7, so we had only had a 13% reduction. So we're not going to make that 2020 goal. So now they're redoing the master plan and figuring out a master plan that goes to 2030. You know, what will those goals be? One of the things to think about in terms of why it was so off was, if you think about the last master plan was being developed during the great financial crisis of 2008. You know, so if you're looking at economic activity and all the rest, you can see maybe some of the reason why they might have been so far off, you know. But anyway, right now we have 5.7 million tons were disposed of in 2017. So where does it go? Well, it goes to the incinerators and landfills. So 44% goes to you know, the waste-to-energy plants, and 17% is landfilled. 9% actually gets recycled, which is construction and demolition waste. And I'll get into that in a second. And then 9% of all the total waste is recycling, or what we separate out of recycling, and it goes to the processing plants. So 9%, people are always shocked about that. It's not that huge, right? So when we're thinking about waste reduction later on, recycling is really important, but there are other things that are just important for us to think about in terms of getting rid of waste, cutting down on our wasteful activities. And then disposal capacity continues to shrink. So 4 more Massachusetts. And one of the big problems is nobody wants a disposal facility in their backyard, so it's a not in my backyard issue. Right now, about the best technology we have are the waste to energy plants, and I know that those are controversial too. But you know, you incinerate everything down. Methane is captured, which is used for energy, and then what is landfilled is ash. And it's funny, if you ever take a tour of one of these facilities, they do tours, and if you're ever interested, you can contact me, and I could like set that up for a group to go on one of these tours. You know, I'm fascinated by trash, you know. But anyway, it's called a monofill, and so they put the ash into a monofill as opposed to a landfill. There's only one thing going in it, and it's ash. And when you see the ash, it's really like it's solid. It's not like ash you brush out of your fireplace, you know. So anyway, and it is toxic, you know, so those monofills have to be lined, you know, there's dioxin and other chemicals in there. So anyway, that's where we are right now. This pie chart shows what I just talked about. So it shows waste to energy gets 44%, landfill gets 17%, but then there's a transfer and handling. And that's kind of confusing. What that is like if there's a few transfer stations where the trash trucks will take the trash to one of these transfer stations. They'll drop it there, but then it'll be taken to the waste to energy plant or to a landfill. So it's really not going to a separate place. And then there's anaerobic digestion, which is like this new technology. And that's really for organics and biosolid, what they call biosolid. And then 8.5, 9% goes to the materials recovery facilities, or that's where the recycling goes to get processed. So here's a waste to energy plant. What they typically look like. Here are the landfills. And landfills are bad. We'll go back to it. I'll just stay here. But landfills are bad because the methane is escaping out of them, as opposed to, you know, the waste to energy plants. The waste to energy plants have their problems too, but there's a lot of scrubbers on them, so a lot of it is really all of the worst toxins are taken out of that smoke before it leaves the plant. So Massachusetts has what they call waste bans. That's why we have recycling. Massachusetts has recycling. Every single municipality has to provide recycling to the community. And so it's because we have waste bans. They're not supposed to show up at a waste to energy plant or in a landfill with these particular things in them. However, a lot still get in them. So, so the first was in 1990 was lead batteries. Then in 91 was leaves. 91 tires, white goods. And then in 1992, other yard waste, aluminum containers in 92, and glass and metal containers. So, you know, like your can of peas or whatever, all those types of things, they implement waste bans. Does it mean that all of a sudden, overnight, it's going to end up not being in there? No, we're still working on it for some families, right? People will say, I don't recycle, but basically, it's banned to go into trash. And so, recyclable paper in 1994, plastic containers. And then in 2000, the cathode ray tubes, that's from the old TVs, and then asphalt and bricks, metal and wood, and gypsum wall board in 2012. And finally, the latest one we have is commercial organic material. So that means that any large food processor, so mainly what it is like Stop and Shop, you know, has it in Whole Foods. Like Whole Foods now, just I see them all around because I know what they are. You see a tank on the side of the building. You see it in a lot of supermarkets. And what that is a slurry tank. And so they've got like a garbage disposal in the kitchen that's not going into the sewer system, it's going into the slurry tank. So they take all the food waste, they put it into that disposal with water, it goes into the slurry tank, it gets picked up and it goes to an anaerobic digester. And an anaerobic digester is like what you see on Deer Island, you know, in the wastewater treatment plants, you see those big eggs. That's basically what they look like. So each one of those, its own anaerobic digester out there in Deer Island. But now there are different ones all over the state of Massachusetts. The Greater Lawrence Sanitary District has 4 of them now, you know. And so they heat up, they kind of work in the same idea as a waste and energy plant. So they heat up this food waste and also the sludge too, basically. They cook it, they skim off the methane. I'm not a scientist, I'm just basically giving you my understanding of it. And then what's left over is a product that they actually sell and use in farming, because it's heated to such a high level, you know, that it's really a soil amendment, or it's kind of like compost, you know. So if you've heard that the city of Cambridge now, they collect food waste citywide. Their food waste does not go to a compost facility. It probably goes to the Greater Lawrence Sanitary District. So it's going to an anaerobic digester. So some food waste gets taken to an anaerobic digester. Other food waste will go to a big compost facility, which we can talk about afterwards. So here's a materials recovery facility. So this is a picture of one right down the road in Billerica with waste management. You know, so this is where they process the recycling. And so what these people are doing is they're picking out contaminants, things that don't belong in the recycling. And actually, in some of the lines, there's even more people. You see a lot of people pulling it out. Mostly plastic bags is their biggest problem, you know? But there's other things too. So this is just a map of where they exist here. So everybody's heard about the recycling crisis, right? With China. So the China ban started last year. First they said that they would still take recycling, and it's not just from the United States, it's from the whole world. They were taking basically everybody's recycling. And they wanted it cleaner, right? Because it's contaminated. So this is how I jokingly talk about it, is that I say, this isn't the first time that China complained. China complained like 6-7 years ago. And at that time they called their national policy green fence. You know, I don't know why, but they called it green fence. And they wanted the United States to get the contamination down below 10%. And then this one is called China's sword, China's national sword. And in this one they said, if we'll take your recyclables, we'll only take it if it has 0.5% contamination in the recycling, meaning there's other stuff in those bales. So that seems almost impossible, doesn't it? 0.5%, right? So, but I kind of joke and I say, well, the first time they said we wanted less than 10%, and we didn't listen to them at all, so they probably all got together and talking like, how do we get the Americans to understand? Okay, we see 0.5%, and maybe they'll get to 5%. Because when you talk to the owners of these materials recovery facilities where they process the recycling, they think it's possible to get down to 5% contamination in the recycling. And that's clean, you know. So that's what everyone is working on right now. So what happened though in the meantime is that China basically isn't taking any recycling. They're not taking any recycling really at all. So they found other markets, but then also markets are developing in the United States right now as I'm speaking. And it's kind of ironic. What's happening is that there are paper mills that are online now to be opened in the next 18 to 24 months here in the United States that will take the mixed paper. So what's happened because of China too is that the market's basically depressed. So all the value has gone way, way down. I mean, some of the stuff you're still selling, but you're not selling at the high prices that we were getting before. So what was happening with municipalities is the municipalities were getting all this money for their recycling, but they were paying for a processing cost to clean it up and bale it and send it to China, etc. And then, but no one really felt that because they were getting so much money from the recycling that they weren't realizing that there was a cost in there too. But then when the market went down, oh wait a second, we still have processing costs, you know, to make all of that happen. And now there's no money coming in. So that's why what's happening to all cities and towns all over the country is they're all being hurt by the fact that it's been devalued. So what they say in the industry is they think that it's going to be 18 to 24 months to develop new markets. And already the paper industry in the United States has already kicked into gear, and they're bringing on paper mills that just closed like 5 years ago, right? But those paper mills at that time, 5 years ago, were probably mostly making white paper, you know, nice stock like you use for copiers, etc. Now they're making brown paper. And they're making brown paper, why? Because of the Amazon effect, basically. What they're making is cardboard and all of these packaging pieces, you know? And they can make that out of mixed paper. And there's a lot of mixed paper that's really not valued right now, but in a year or two, they expect it all to rebound again. Because there is a demand, there's a need for it. Not only that, but the Chinese are sending investors over to the United States to open up paper mills too. Why? Because they want fiber. They want the fiber. So what they want, and it makes sense, why process it, take it, bundle it, send it all the way to China, and then have to go through all that process. Process it here in the United States, and then send the fiber to China. So Chinese investors are also working to open up some of these paper mills, which is kind of ironic in a sense too. But that's what's happening with paper. And then in Massachusetts has a unique situation, which is glass. You know, so what happened in Massachusetts was we had a glass bottling plant that was taking all the glass in Massachusetts. But what's happening, and you can see this when you're going through the supermarket, right? You see that now, you know, the mayonnaise is not in a glass jar anymore, it's in a plastic jar. Everything's being switched to plastic, right? And so, so that's why that company closed. And so now we've got to find other places for glass. The tragedy is glass is such a perfect recyclable material, right? What's it made out of? Sand. It's made out of sand, you know, so dust to dust, right? So basically, right now, some of the things that they're developing right now too, in Mass DP has given out 2 grants, one to the town of Groton and one to the town of Dennis, to do glass crushing. And they found that it's a good aggregate in the aggregate glass is good in roadways. Up in New Hampshire, they started using it, and it drains better than sand. So it prevents frost heaves in roads. So there are other uses of it too, because it's kind of dirty glass, right? When they smash it and everything, it's got little pieces of plastic around the neck. It might have the metal if it was a wine bottle. It might just have the labels in there, all that. That gets into it too. I should have brought that as a show and tell, which is I have a jar of it. It looks just like a bunch of dirty sand is what it looks like, you know. But, you know, it's a product. Is it really worth that much? No. Do we want to recycle it and put it, you know, for the environment? Yes, it's the right thing to do. So, so here's just me talking about contamination. So Mass DEP wants to help cities and towns and the MRFs clean up recycling. Why? Because we want everybody to continue recycling. It's really important for the environment. It's about 8 or 9% of where our waste goes right now. If you want to call it waste, we want to say we don't want it wasted until it's really not waste until it's wasted, right? but we want to get it out of there. So, so that's what we've been working on. And Tewksbury went through that process last year. You had people out checking cards. I came out one morning with the team, and yeah, who else was it? Oh, you were there too. Yeah, I went out with you too. Okay, great. And so my memory from what I found in one of the cards in Tewksbury was I found big rotors. You know, somebody had changed their brakes or whatever. Those are really heavy, and those can do a lot of damage in the MRF, is what we call the materials recovery facilities. So you know, there's like simple things that are wrong in the recycling, and then there's big things that are wrong in the recycling, and that's a big thing that's wrong in the recycling. You know, they can do some damage. So what I want to show you is another thing that Mass DP did was, and you might have noticed this if you've been in other towns that have lived, or lived in a different town and moved here, is that, oh, in Acton, this is recyclable, and Lynn, that's recyclable, and in Tewksbury, that's not recyclable, it's all over the place. So Mass DP sat down with all of these materials recovery facilities and said, let's figure out what it is across the board that you take, and that way we have clean recycling going in, and then we have less residue or contamination, right? So that it's easier to process, you know, and that markets will take it. Because now that the American markets are being developed, now they want it clean. So I was going to China before, we didn't have to think about it, you know. Everybody wants a clean product, right? So that's what we're working on right now. So they created a one-stop website called Recycle Smart MA. Now I'm going to be so excited if I can get to it right now. Because what it really is, it's not an encyclopedia, it's a recyclopedia. You know? And so at the top there, you can ask, you know, what is recyclable? So does anybody have anything they want me to look up?
What do we do with batteries?
Batteries? All right, let's see.
I got one list.
All right, see, now they give you so many options. They say, is it a button battery, a rechargeable, a lithium, a tangle? You know, it's great. So you can look car battery. Yeah, maybe I'll put that in my recycling. And pesticide, garden chemicals, and fertilizers. You know, that type of battery. So what one should we look up? Any particular
I
one?
just want a flashlight battery.
All right,
Battery.
let's try a rechargeable then. It's really not rechargeable, no. Household hazardous waste. The rechargeables are household hazardous waste because they have a little bit of mercury in them, I'm pretty sure. So, like it's a lithium type of battery. So let's look up. Let's see if they'll give me an alkaline battery. All right. Maybe if I just say alkaline battery. Single-use alkaline battery. That's for the flashlight. Put it in the trash. So alkaline batteries, almost every one that you buy now for a flashlight or any of those purposes, you can just throw it in the trash. It's not household hazardous waste, you know. So just check your batteries. If the battery's like 10 years old, you might want to put it in the household hazardous waste. If it doesn't say alkaline on it, then that would be one that you should, you know. But this can go in the trash, you know. So most of these alkaline batteries can go in the trash. Any other one that we want to look up?
Fluorescent light bulbs.
All right. Fluorescent tube, because the CFL's tube, basically the answer is the same. See, it has mercury in it, so you want to take that to a household hazardous waste day. Some towns will have, they'll accept them on a regular basis. I don't know, Tewksbury is, you know? So yeah, household hazardous waste day. The CFLs, the small ones, you can take them to Lowe's and to Home Depot. They all will take those. can also maybe take them to Lowell as well, because Lowell accepts it on a regular basis, and they accept from outside of towns too.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
You can say, well, drop it off at Main Street or corner.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the DPW in Lowell.
The back of our recycling calendar has information on it.
Yeah.
The Lexington facility is
Too.
recommended for Tewksbury residents.
Oh, okay, because you're part of the Minuteman, right? Okay, so yeah, you can take it to the Lexington.
So a regular light bulb, screw-on light bulb,
Yeah.
we work with that, we would not usually throw in the, when we throw in the trash, we throw in the recycling, is it
No.
regular trash?
Yeah, regular
Is
trash.
it regular trash?
Yeah. How about an egg carton? Because that's confusing, because they're made of different materials, right?
Oh, the card that's
Did they get that right? No. Let's just go now. Egg, or, is that right, egg cartons? Yeah. All right, so it shows me paper, styrofoam, and plastic. So paper, where do you think that goes? Recycle. Yeah, it would. Styrofoam? Trash. All right, what about plastic? Yeah, it is, it's recyclable. I didn't know that, because I thought it was the type of plastic that wasn't recyclable. So that was a new one for me. That's why it's really great to look everything up here if you're really into it, because you'll find things, you know, that your information was not correct.
Are they not using the number system anymore?
No.
They're not.
Yeah, so basically, just if you know the number system, the only things that are really being made out of plastic right now are numbers 1, 2, and 5, right? So they don't want 3, 4, 6, and 7, right? 6 is styrofoam, right? They don't want 3, 4, 7, but almost nothing is made out of those now anymore. So you, like, just, you know, you can exhaust yourself by looking at everything and you'll see 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, you know? So they said, you know, like, let's not even deal with numbers, because all of that is it's telling you what the resin is, you know, it's the type of plastic it is. And let's get it simpler and say, you know, tubs, bottles, jars, you know. Basically, it's products that you would bring home from either CVS or the supermarket, basically, is really what you want to think about. And so if it's something on that you didn't get at the supermarket or at CVS, like a shampoo bottle or something like that, then definitely go to the recyclopedia, you know.
What about the, there's lots of caps on, like on the cartons and jars, salad dressing?
Yeah, now they're telling you to put the cap back on. Put the cap back on.
And whatever.
Yeah, because it's gonna go together, screwed on, right? It's gonna get flattened, but it's gonna stay together. They're made out of the same material, you know, and so they'll go off. Now, there's one exception, pumps. So if I put in the recyclopedia pump, right? If I say pumps,
You mean like a hand lotion pump?
yeah, yeah. So, oh, it's so funny, it showed me shoes, you know? So, let's see. Dispenser pump. You know, so sometimes it'll just know, but if not, you can actually look around on this website and you can send them a message and say, I think you should put this on there, you know, because I couldn't find it. And that's what they're doing, adding things. So it shows floss dispenser, pumps from soap bottles. So basically that's what we're looking for. So pump from a lotion bottle, a soap bottle, so a spray bottle too they have. So they say, put this in your trash bin, but the plastic bottle they want. So take the pump off. Yeah, but regularly for like, you know, a cap of anything, you want to put it back on. So like, well, here's my cap here. Do it together.
So a nickel jar that has a tin, metal,
Yeah.
would you,
Well, you know what's so funny? I'll just tell tell you a little anecdote about that. She's asking about a glass pickle jar with the top, and that's usually made out of metal, right? So we were at a conference, and the glass guy said, no, we want you to leave that on because we harvest that metal, and that brings us money. So the glass people actually want the metal to stay on there, so you could screw it on. So what happens to the glass? Yeah, so these materials processing plants, they actually hate the glass, right? Because it goes into the truck, it's all smashed up. Sometimes it gets embedded in the paper, right? But it's really a problem material. We still haven't really solved the big problem with glass in a lot of ways, you know? But basically, it still, you know, gets taken away and it gets processed with glass people on different things, but it's really not worth a lot of money, and it's frustrating because it's 100% recyclable material, you know? So, so basically, we want it to be recycled, but it's not, if we were gonna let the market decide, the market would decide not to recycle, right? Because it doesn't bring money. So anyway, I wanted to, we can continue with the Recyclopedia, but I was talking to the recycling coordinator from Bedford yesterday, and I told him I was doing this because he said, I just brought this box, I just drove down the street and the carts were hanging out and I saw all this stuff that doesn't belong in the recycle cart. I said, can you take that to Tewksbury Park? So he said, yeah, sure. So I met him at the REI parking lot, and we switched up and he gave his box. I'm not even sure everything that's in here. So this, of course, is a no, right? It's styrofoam.
Is there any town that's my system that's not pretty sure?
I doubt it, no. Stoughton would be on, this is the, we're trying to like get every community to get on and get this message out there. Why? Because it goes to these MRFs. And so the MRFs are really, they're the ones who know. Sometimes the haulers, the guys that pick up, they're not 100% on board all the time. But the MRF knows what they want and they don't want, you know? So anyway, what is this? Styrofoam, right? It's a foam plate, we don't want that. So here's the new one, no cartons. Isn't that heartbreaking? Yeah, no cartons. Yeah. I'm hoping that changes, but right now they don't want cartons.
I'm sorry, what are we supposed to do with all this stuff?
Trash. Trash.
Put it in trash.
Yeah, and it is heartbreaking, right? Because before we thought we were recycling 80–90% of what we were doing, right? So now we have to put it in the trash, but you know what? Let's clean up the recycling, still recycle 75% of what we're producing. That's good for the environment, and then we're really recycling correctly, because we're wish cycling, we're delusional if we keep on, there was somebody I work with, and they were like, I'm still gonna put this in there, and I'm like, okay, go to the MRF, they're gonna put it in there, and they're gonna throw it out, you know? And not only that, they're gonna charge your town because it's contamination now, you know? So like, I know it's frustrating, believe me, I'm really frustrated with all of these changes. Yes, yeah. So what about this? Trash. Same, it's foam, really, you know? So now it's getting disgusting. All right, what's this? Yeah. So I'm gonna save that. I know, I'm gonna have to wash my hands afterwards. So, anyway, there's like bubble plastic wrappers, a lot of plastic wrappers. Straw in the cover, no. So here's another new one that'll break your heart. Black plastic. It's number 5, you know? If you're really a fanatic, what you could do is save all your black plastic, and take it to Whole Foods, and they have boxes for number 5. Give me 5. You know, so if you really want to be alpha recycling, you can do that. But the problem with this is that there's optical scanners can't see it. They haven't figured it out yet. So it's black, optical scanner can't see it, so it's trash. So this is recyclable, but they left the plastic on, you know? And then there's all these kind of wrappers. So I don't know if this was one trash or not. But that's what he pulled out, so I said, save that for me. So, this, food, clean and dry, clean and dry. It's also, but you know, so I'm gonna get to this because I have a solution for that. So here's tinfoil. This was, I used it the other night and I cleaned it. All right, recyclable. Roll it up in a ball and throw it in the recycle cup. Yeah. So,
It's clean.
just like a tinfoil plate, too, because they want this, they want the tinfoil. As long as it's clean, clean and dry, you can put it in the recycle, it's good in a ball. And the optical scanners, the magnets pull it off, and they want it.
Instead of a walk, just.
Yeah, it's just better because it'll get ripped and everything, you know, so. So let's look it up too. You'll see it. I think they rolled it up in the ball with a picture.
So aluminum.
Yeah, the tin container, aluminum foil, aluminum baking tray, foil top yogurt container, chip bag, no. All right, so let's look at the chip bag afterwards. Because some of those chip bags look like they're tin foil, they're really plastic. So those go in the trash, but let's do the aluminum foil. See, rinse or wipe clean all food, and they just roll it up in a ball, you know, well, we could play with that all night long, but I'm going to get out of that now and go to my next slide. All right, so here, we call this the map of shame. So it's really how much trash per household for each community in Massachusetts. So Tewksbury is like a dark orange, so on the map, but 8,756 tons of municipal solid waste for 10,000 households. That meant that almost 1,741 pounds, a little less than a ton a year per household in Tewksbury, you know. So the green towns are like under 750, you know. So you have a high tonnage in Tewksbury. So thinking about like, you know, ways to reduce that. So what can Tewksbury do? And I say a lot. So here's this visual we've been using for years, which is this truck. And they do what they call a waste characterization study, right? And so they see what is in, they go around to the different waste to energy plants in Massachusetts and take samples coming out of trucks to do this. And this one was done, I think, in 2008. So paper was 25% of the waste at that time. And think about it, if it's 2008, there's more newspapers than there are today, right? And then organics was 20%, that's food and anything that can break down organically. Plastic was 14%. Construction demolition is 14%. Other materials, tires, textiles, bulky items were 11.6%. Metals were 5.5%. Electronics were 3.3%. Household hazardous waste was 3.2%. And glass was 2.2%. So that was back then, and this is now. So we don't have a nice trash truck, but we have a little pie chart. So organics or food has gone up to 31% now. It was 20% before. Why is that? Because we've taken out a lot more recyclables and paper has actually gone down. So that increases the percentage of organics. But I want to talk a little bit about organics because I'm like sold on organics right now. It's like, so what do we take out of the trash to make trash lighter, to trash less, right? It's organic, it's food, it's paper. So I subscribe now to this company, Black Earth, but there are all these companies that have started up. Another one close by is Offbeat Organics. And what they do is they'll sell you one, sadly, one of these carts. You buy it for like $25, and then you actually pay to have them pick up your food waste, right? And so you fill that cart. Now, I have a house with 4 units. I live in one, and I rent out 3. And so I have all my tenants on it, you know, they're recycling perfectly, and then they're doing the food waste. We divert about 25 pounds a week of food waste. There's no trash left, right? We do all our recycling, but the trash is growing. What's it growing with? It's growing with all of this stuff in this box right here, you know? So but it's really light, you know, because we empty everything out. so it's super light. That is so heavy. It's compact. Think about food waste, right? So before everything was going, that could go down the garbage disposal, was going down the garbage disposal, and bones couldn't go down, banana peels, things like that. These industrial compost operations, they take it all. You know, they take all the food waste, and then they tell you to throw in all your tissues, all your paper towels, all your paper napkins. You know, so you think about all that, this stuff. So this is compostable, right? This is from Chipotle. See, I even know. This is exactly a Chipotle bowl. This is completely 100% recyclable. So today I went to Sweet Greens. Everything at Sweet Greens is 100% compostable. Even this plastic cover is actually a compostable cover. The silverware or utensils, 100% compostable. So I'm going to throw that in this cart later on, you know. So just thinking about really the future is in organics. Like, how do we cut down on our waste? It's going up to that. About my nephews graduating now. So about 5 years ago, I went out to California to help them look at schools, you know. And of course, I'm in this business, so we're driving to one school to the next, and every day we drove through trash day there, you know. And I was like fascinated because there were 3 carts out every place in Northern California. The recycle cart, the trash cart, and the composter. So it was like these, and now I have it at home. I'm all excited, you know, just like California.
Compost bins are much, much bigger. They're huge. They're like what we use for recycling.
Wow.
Huge compost every week.
Yeah.
If
And
you
the
don't want
trash
to put
ones are small.
Because you can put your
you
leaves.
don't want to use it for your own compost in your own garden, which most people do, then you can give it to the town and they will compost it, and then you can go and get it for free from the town once it's mulched.
Yeah,
Or some towns charge.
right. And it's also your leaf litter too. It's all of
Everything.
that. Yeah.
That will take chicken compost.
Yeah, take it. Yeah, you take everything. Meat. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's where. So the other alternative is to do the backyard composting if you don't want to sign up for a subscription service. But then what I'm like hoping is like, say in 5 years, where like California and every municipality has these 3, you know, and maybe our trash cart gets that small, right? Except right now, I'm just going to warn you that it's really scary what we see happening from Procter & Gamble and all these companies. They're actually going to this packaging, and you might have already seen it on the shelves, where it's like very thick plastic bag, you know, with like a nozzle or something like that. It's not recyclable. And so when they present it to the recycling industry, they say, isn't this great? It's, you know, it's only 30% of what that Tide bottle was, right? But it's not recyclable. So they're still going in the wrong direction. So what we're finding is that, is this box going to grow more of things that we can put into recycling, but it's less packaging, but then it's going to be trash because there's no, what we call producer responsibility. To think about not only better packaging, and why are they making that packaging? They're making that packaging because they expect that everything is going to be mail order delivered. And I can see it as a landlord. I have a tenant who has her toilet paper delivered by Amazon. Talk about ridiculous. In a cardboard box, and it's cheaper than the supermarket. So they're just doing this to hook people into it, right? It's coming in a cardboard box. You know, it's totally insane, right? But now the packaging industry or the consumer product industry, they're figuring out packaging that will go through the mail as easily as possible. So it's really something that, you know, advocacy, not my job, but advocacy groups really have to think about in the United States of like, you know, responsibility of the producer to really figure out the packaging so that it's recyclable. You know, because these are all plastics, etc.
He said something on the news the other day about recyclables, and he was doing a service where you would order things, and they would come to you all jarred up in glass jars, and then you
Yeah.
send them back, and do the same
Yeah.
thing between the shipping and the gas, and you start to wonder, like, I guess it's the cloth diapers versus disposable diapers, which produces more energy.
Right, right.
So, you know, how do you know, I mean, one, I think it's very challenging, I guess, go buy things in bulk where you fill a plastic bag or
Right.
whatever. But it's
Yeah, and who knows, like, you know, in Amazon too, right? They have all these lockers now. So will it be that you have Amazon Prime, but now you don't get it delivered, next day you get it delivered to the Amazon? They even, I bought something and it said, will you sign up to be a once a week delivery, you know? So, and maybe they're gonna deliver it to the lockers and not in cardboard or whatever, you know, because basically that's where these companies go. And so basically, you know, like, the recycling world is not in the present. We're just trying to catch up to what is being thrown at us every day in terms of the changes, right? And so it's like, what's recyclable for the recycling carts that we have out there? Those carts were made 10 years ago, right? They had no conception of Amazon, right? Because how many people in this room, all the cardboard boxes, and you're out there with a knife, you know, box cutter, cutting them up to fit them in because they're not made really to take all that cardboard, but that's what we're giving it now, you know? So, so anyway, looking at this, look at papers down to 22% now, right? So papers is falling in the percentage. And then this glass is about the same, still 2%. Metal is 4%. Plastic is about the same, 1% less. It's 13%. Not all of it's recyclable. So, so that's our changing. But so the other thing I want to say about that pie is, right, what we're also chasing is that our pie is getting bigger, right? So it's like if it's 20% or 31%, but the pie has also been slightly growing, you know? So we're trying to do two things. We're trying to decrease that pie of waste, and then we're also trying to figure out what we can pull out of it so that it doesn't. So what else can we do, right? So here's the other thing. You can't compost at home, right? You won't be able to put chicken bones and you know, grease and things like that in there. But you know, you can create compost at home. And you don't even need to buy one of these. You can just get some chicken wire and, you know, compost out in your backyard. And especially if you have a little more land than I do in the city. So, you know, you could compost as well without having to pay anybody to take it away. So in this map I should have talked about, so this company, it's just exploding. All of these places that are diverting food waste for composting. So another idea is reuse, right? So there are now what's called repair clinics and repair events, right? And so a lot of them are being held like in Bolton and Littleton in this area. And you can take things, radios, you can bring your shears and get those sharpened and all kinds of things like that. How many people do you know that throw them out because they don't know how to sharpen or where to take them to sharpen, you know? So there is so much waste. We're changing things into single use in the society that are really not single use, but it's because people have a conception that they can sharpen them, they can fix it, that a lot of these things are fixable. But then going back to producer responsibility, making things, you know, fixable too so that they last longer, right? And then zero waste days, which Tewksbury had until I started this job, and I saw the event online, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. And hopefully, you know, somebody will bring that back because those are great things to do. And here's another thing in the reuse movement that's happening, and I don't know if Tewksbury has it, but there's a library of things and tools. So, you know, start lending things out. So one of the examples that I went to like a workshop on how to do these library things is a stud finder. And I thought, I have a stud finder. We used it 10 years ago and we never used it again, right? And so these types of things, like why buy one if you can just go down to the local library and borrow it? All kinds of tools like that. You know, you just need it now and then. So,
So Julia, sadly, the library currently does not have a library of things, but it is something we're looking at.
oh, great, great, great. Yeah, it's really a movement in the library system.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of MPLC libraries, a lot of libraries in our consortium already do.
great. And then that's just back, and that's it. So I'm looking at the time, it's like 2 minutes to 8. But I hope this is helpful, and I can answer any other questions too. But,
What is going towards education? 'Cause I remember I had hate mail one time in Wilmington from the recycling guy saying, you can't do that, you have to cut out this stuff, you have to do whatever. And I was like, wow, nobody told me. It seems like the public outreach as far as, I mean, I learned some things today. I was growing, not that kind of styrofoam, but the kind from the new guy.
yeah.